FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
What has Mr. Medvedev said he's going to do, and I'm going to wrap up in just a minute here. Well, stability and maintaining the current course at all costs is his biggest goal. Domestically, this means what he's called the 4 I's: institutions, infrastructure, investment, and innovation. And again, this is something he came out with 2 weeks ago in particular, but he's been working for about 2 years on these national projects. By institutions, he means law. He is saying that he's actually paid some attention to freedom. He talks about freedom. But what he really means is, I think, a much more constrained version of freedom than what we might mean here in a democratic country. He means, when he starts talking a little bit more about freedom, he says freedom doesn't mean chaos. Freedom means living within the law. And that's, again, a little bit reminiscent, I think, of 2000 and dictatorship of law. But again, just like Mr. Putin 8 years ago, he's talking about making the law matter and enforcing the law. And he's a lawyer, too, just like Mr. Putin. The other institution or institutions that he says will matter, aside from courts, are monetary and financial, and institutions to fight corruption. So again, but basically talking about this in very general terms. The second I is infrastructure, talking about roads. We haven't done a very good job building roads. We need to modernize roads, and we also need to modernize telecommunications, our schools, our education. So really talking about picking Russia up and moving it forward infrastructurally as well. Talks about health, all of those shocking statistics that I just listed off for you, he lists off as well. But says that basically, you know, what we're going to do is come up with both a private and public healthcare system. How we're going to do that, I'm not sure, but that's what he says they're going to do. And investment is the third of the 4 I's, and here he really means trying to get people to save some money and trying to get Russians to invest back in Russia. He doesn't talk very much about foreign investment, and he doesn't talk about investment really too far outside of oil and gas in particular. And then the 4th is innovation. And here again, he says a lot of the right things, and it would be great if all of this happened in terms of, if education fed into innovation, and if he was able to actually provide incentives for private companies to do research and development and to come up with sort of new Russian technology. Certainly they have the intellectual capital to do that, but there hasn't been much of an incentive in the last 8 years, the last 15 years for that matter, to innovate. And so this is essentially what he's laid out as his most important projects. Notice what he has not really laid out is anything too political in terms of making Russia more democratic. Now, he said democracy is the way and people do best when they're free, but this is, again, I think, a very constrained perception of what freedom actually is. It's freedom with order, it's freedom with stability.